Hi everyone! In this video, I'll be going over essay organization. First, we're going to look at the big picture of how to organize an essay, and then we'll look at examples and go into more detail about how to do each part. In general, an essay has three components: an introduction, body paragraphs, and a conclusion. With the introduction, we begin with the big picture. So we begin with background information, doing other things to grab the reader's attention and get them into the topic. And finally, we end the introduction with the main idea of your essay. What specifically are you going to talk about? Then, the middle part of your essay goes into more detail about your topic, about your main idea. And each of these body paragraphs need to be organized with a topic sentence or main idea sentence, evidence and analysis, and an ending. Okay? And we also use strategies to link the paragraphs, but you might have 3, you might have 4, you might have 2 body paragraphs. You may even have 10 body paragraphs. It all depends what you're writing about and how much you want to write. So that's the middle of your essay. And finally, we end it with a conclusion where we rephrase the thesis, remind the reader of the main idea, you summarize your points, and make a final statement. So you start specific in the conclusion and then maybe go broad. Let's go into more detail about each of these parts of an essay. First, let's start with the introduction. So sometimes when people write, they begin with a hook. This is an attention getter to get the reader to want to read your essay. You might have an interesting fact, a definition of an important word, a story, maybe a misconception, an idea that people have that is wrong. Then you have background information, or you might begin your essay with background information. It all depends how you want to do your essay. But background information gives history or other points of view. It gives the information to the reader that they need to know to understand your essay, or maybe it gives like the big picture of the topic. And finally, you end your essay, your introduction, with a thesis statement. This is the main idea of your whole essay, what specifically you're going to talk about. Let's read this example introduction. When my brother brought home the black Labrador Fido, I was not happy. I'm terrified of dogs. I was worried that Fido would bite me or jump on me. But after a couple of weeks, I was in love. Dogs make excellent pets. Throughout history, they have provided companionship, warning of danger, and help with hunting. Although taking care of dogs can be a lot of work, these pets can provide so much happiness in a person's life. Overall, dogs can have a positive effect on a person's physical and emotional life. Here at the beginning of the introduction, I have my attention getter. I actually tell a story of my first dog to get the reader into the topic and grab their attention. After that, I give some background information on how dogs have made excellent pets throughout history. And I also talk about that having a dog can be hard. It can be a lot of work. So I'm giving some background. And finally, I have my thesis statement. Dogs can have a positive effect on a person's physical and emotional life. So in this essay, I'm going to prove that dogs have a positive effect physically and emotionally. So this is in general a very simple introduction to show you how it looks. Now let's talk a little bit more about the thesis statement. This is probably the most important sentence in an essay. It tells the reader the main idea, and it's usually the last sentence in the introduction. Without a thesis statement, the reader may get confused because they don't know what the point of your essay is. An essay without a thesis is kind of like a car without a driver. With no driver, what happens to a car? The car will not have a direction and eventually crash. Let's talk a little bit about thesis statements. Thesis statements usually have a topic, a main idea, and a plan of development. This here is optional, this third one. Let's look at some example main idea sentences. Education can change your life. So maybe my essay is going to talk about the ways that education can change your life. My topic is education. And my main idea is that it can change your life. This is the point that I'm going to make in my essay. Here's another example. Smoking is harmful to your health. Smoking in general is my topic, but the main idea is harmful to your health. That's what's going to be developed in the essay, the ways that it's harmful or the reasons it's harmful. Now, you can also have this plan of development. Education can change your life by opening your mind, learning new skills, and creating new job opportunities. So maybe my first body paragraph is about opening your mind. Second, learning new skills. And 3, creating new job opportunities. So this is a thesis statement with the plan of development. Here's another example. Smoking is harmful to your health and those around you. So my plan of development is your health and those around you. So maybe one body paragraph or 2 focuses on the individual's, the smoker's health, and then the second part talks about secondhand smoke, how smoking can harm the people around you. So again, thesis statements should have a topic and a main idea, and if you want, it can also have a plan of development. Please remember, the thesis usually is the last sentence in the introduction. Okay, so that's information about the introduction. Let's talk a little bit about body paragraphs. So your body paragraphs, you might have 1, 2, or 4 or more, and they're organized in a certain way. You want a topic sentence, the main idea of the paragraph, supporting sentences with evidence, which can come in the form of examples, details, personal experience, facts, information from experts, and also analysis. So if you give examples, you want to make sure that you analyze them. This means to connect it to your main point, to show how that evidence proves your point. Sometimes it's obvious and sometimes it isn't obvious. So this is a part of supporting sentences. It's sort of like explanation. And then there's the conclusion sentence, where you wrap up your body paragraph. Let's look at this example. Dogs can help people become healthy physically. After Fido came into our lives, I became more fit. Every day I walked at least 1 hour. For my job, I sit at a desk all day long, so taking those daily walks with Fido have made me exercise. Many dogs require lots of exercise. Owners can take them on runs, walk them to the park, take them to a dog beach, or visit a dog park to play with other dogs. Having a dog forces people to be outside in the fresh air, moving their bodies, which helps improve people's physical health. So I begin with my topic sentence. This paragraph is going to be how dogs help you physically, so how it helps your body. That's specifically what I'm focusing on in this body paragraph. And then I give evidence. I talk about my personal experience with Fido. I started walking every day. Um, and I also give more examples. You can take them on runs, walk them to the park, go to a dog beach. And then I also provide analysis. So I mentioned that taking those daily walks with Fido have made me exercise. So I'm connecting back to this idea of physical health, that now I'm taking the dog for a walk. This means that now I get exercise. And then finally, I have my conclusion. Having a dog forces people to be outside in the fresh air, moving their bodies, which helps improve people's physical health. So I remind the reader of the main idea, and I connect the information here that you're outside, you're exercising, and in general, this leads to physical health. Now, the final paragraph is the conclusion. So you want to rephrase the thesis, remind the reader of the main idea, synthesize and summarize. How do your main points connect? And then some kind of final statement in your essay. Why is this important? What should the reader do or believe? And you want to come full circle. Let's look at this example. Dogs require a lot of attention and care, but the benefits outweigh the drawbacks. This means there are more benefits. They weigh more. They're more important than the negative things, the drawbacks. They help people develop a healthier body and mind. When a dog owner is outside walking and developing companionship with their pet, they become happier and healthier. For people who suffer from depression or other health issues, getting a dog may be the answer. I thought my brother bringing Fido home was a huge mistake, but in the end it was the biggest blessing. So here I'm rephrasing my thesis. They help people develop a healthier body and mind. My thesis was here. I wrote that they have a positive effect on the physical and emotional life. I'm not writing it exactly the same. You want to put it in different words. I connect my main points. When a dog owner is outside walking and developing companionship, they become happier and healthier. So I connect the physical and the emotional part. Those were my body paragraphs. So I want to summarize those and connect them. And then I have my final statement. For people who suffer from depression or other health issues, getting a dog may be the answer. So here I'm giving advice to the readers. Maybe you should get a dog. And then I finally come full circle in my essay, how I go back, because at the beginning in the introduction I had that story about Fido, and then I end my essay going back to that same story and why that story is important. I thought my brother, it should actually have an ing. I thought my brother bringing Fido home was a huge mistake, but in the end it was the biggest blessing. So here I have a final statement where I wrap up my essay. So let's summarize. Remember, in an essay, you have an introduction, several body paragraphs that connect back to your thesis, and finally a conclusion paragraph. Writing essays take practice, and don't worry if it isn't perfect. Each time you write another essay, it'll get easier and better. Please email me if you need any help or have questions, and we'll talk about this more in our Zoom sessions. Bye.